What year is it? What is this, our fourth one, fifth? Or just say another? How do we know when we're rolling?
You're good.
We're all straight?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good afternoon. This is Chief Steve Drew with the Newport News Police Department, and I just wanted to continue with our Facebook Live sessions. I think it's important, again, that we try to share as much information as we can in non-traditional ways. So sometimes I think going live through our Facebook and internet feeds to get some information out while people are doing some other things plays a role in individuals know what's going on with their department in the city, and not always being able to make some of the town hall meetings or community meetings that we have. So that's the basis of what we're here for. My plan is to address as many concerns and issues and thoughts and have some good conversation as individuals write in or chime in. And when we have some space and gaps, I'll just kind of talk about where we sit right now as a department on crime in our city, some of the initiatives that we're doing, some of the hot topics that we're currently facing, and then as we move forward, what's next. So let me start out by again saying good afternoon. Hope everyone had a nice holiday weekend. But touching base on our first, let's talk a little bit about crime for our city. So currently, the Newport, I just received the crime numbers as I walked down here, so that's a good thing. Currently, as we sit, the city sits at a 7% reduction in violent crime. We have 10 less violent crimes than we had this year. We're down in murders. Our rapes are 2 above where they were last year. Our robberies were down by 4, and aggravated assaults are down by 5, and all that together puts us at a 7% reduction in violent crime. Our property crime overall is down 14%. So when you put those two things together, our decrease in property crime and our decrease in violent crime, it puts the city currently, both of those together, at a 12%, a little over 12% reduction in total crime. If you remember, we ended last year with a 5% reduction in overall crime for our city, and we're currently sitting right now at just a little over 12%, and we're almost, well, I guess about 7 weeks into the year as we move forward. A couple other things I think are highlights for us that I think are important. This time last year, we had 15 individuals that had suffered gunshot wounds in our city. 15 individuals had been struck by gunfire. As of today, we have 7. So that's just a little bit over a 50% reduction. It's 53% decrease in individuals that have been shot in our city, as we continue to focus on gun violations, aggravated assault, shootings, and trying to be proactive to address some of those issues before they relate to violence. Trying to get on the front end, interaction and intervention with individuals that may be participating in that type of crime. So that just kind of gives you an update. We also break that down as we look in each precinct, how each precinct doing. But we put those all together, and that gives us our numbers for jointly for the city as a whole. We've recovered 107 firearms, and this is important. We've recovered 107 firearms from the streets of Newport News. This time last year, we had recovered 58. Now, in all, over the last 2 years, in 2017 and 2018, we took about 650 firearms off the street, illegal firearms, right? Those that were involved in crimes, those that were associated with illegal narcotics, convicted felons, search warrants, those type things. This time last year, we had recovered 58. As of right now, the men and women of this department have removed 107 firearms off the streets, and I think that's played a big role in the reductions that we've seen in our shootings, our aggravated assaults. So we're being very, very proactive there, trying to get ahead of the game and not be as reactive. I think that's important. I still have some concerns about our issues with overdoses, and not just overdoses, but also fatalities related to opioid use. The last 2 days in January, we met as a department and laid out our balanced scorecard, our goals for what we're going to do for next year, this year for 2019. And we talked about not only reducing crime, but we talked about youth events, youth programs that we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. We also looked at neighborhoods that we're going to have a direct focus on, that we see some of our violent crime, some of our issues stemming from. And the last thing we talked about was issues with homelessness issues with opioid, heroin use, and drug addiction, and then interacting more and more with our schools. And I'm proud to say I think we have some good, very, very high lofting goals. I really pushed this department hard to create, to think about really, really, really proactive goals, right? Not just hey, let's try to keep the status quo. And we started from the ground up. So we didn't set the goals from the top down. We started with the officers and got their input, and we brought that up. We put that together and came out with some really, really good goals. And I feel like we're going to have a great, let me say this, I think we're going to have a record year in Newport News. I think we're going to see great crime reduction, and we're going to do a lot of things with community and a lot of things with youth throughout the year in 2019. So a couple individuals have logged on. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the support. We're getting a lot of support. A lot of crime tips are coming in. We're getting a lot of support from our community. The faith-based community has been fantastic. We've had a couple meetings already trying to share information, some things we're going to focus on. One issue that we're going to focus on in our city holistically. A lot of different agencies come into play is domestic violence, domestic abuse. That's a crime that it is hard for officers to deal with because it happens so often behind walls. When those calls come in, it has already occurred and we're responding. But an issue we have is when we do those investigations, we hear neighbors or we hear friends or we hear family say, oh, we knew this was going on or we heard this, but we didn't call. And we're really trying to be much more proactive. A lot of our aggravated assaults come out of domestic violence, and I'd like to deal with those on the front end. I'd like to find ways in interacting with families to reduce the number of those that occur for the safety, to work with our Commonwealth Attorney. We had a great presentation from our Commonwealth Attorney's office just a few weeks ago about domestic violence, and we had that presentation with our faith leaders. I've asked for them to give me some advice, to give me some new ideas, and ask for their help to assist us in reducing domestic violence. It's the same message that we're sending to our communities, our apartment complexes, our neighborhoods, that if you hear something and know something to say, it's to let us know, but not be so much around waiting till it happens and then responding. I want to be much more proactive and try to address things on the front end. Miss Dana, MC, cleaned up, especially around too many suspicious looking men walking around. Thank you for everything you do. I appreciate that comment. We're trying to do more and more, and I want citizens to be involved. And look, a lot of times, we get calls of a suspicious person, and we'll investigate that, and it's absolutely nothing at all, and that's okay. And we interact and explain to people why we're talking to them, why we've asked to have a conversation with them, and sometimes it's just uneasy. People may have not saw that particular individual in a neighborhood, but I'd much rather get those calls and interact with our citizens than for things to happen and citizens don't call. On that same vein, it's incumbent upon us that when we get calls and complaints from citizens that we respond to them, we act to them quickly. I don't want to wait weeks before we respond to complaints. I think that's how you build trust and transparency, that you're working hand in hand with our community, and we let them know that their issues and concerns are our issues and concerns. We may look at things somewhat differently, but I want them to know when they call this police department that they're going to get a quality response, a timely response, and that we take their concerns seriously. And then we've got to follow up, that we check this individual that you believe that might be suspicious, that we checked on this vehicle, that we checked on this speeding, that we checked on this drug complaint, and there's nothing to it, or hey, there was something to it, it panned out. We can't go into the details, but an arrest was made, a seizure was made, something along those lines, so people know that they're getting a good response. Tony, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I tell you, when I talk about the crime reduction that we're seeing right now in our city, like I said, we ended up with a 5% reduction last year. We're a little bit over 12% this year, just 2 months in. But I attribute that to two things: the citizens of Newport News, the businesses, the faith leaders, the individuals who live here that are taking their neighborhoods back, that are being proactive, that are sharing information with the police department. And then I attribute it to the hard work and the dedication of the men and women, sworn in civilian, that work in this department. They do a phenomenal job. Officers, those who work behind the scenes, our dispatchers from communications, everyone working together. As we move into 2019, One of the things I want to do is I want to use outside resources, not just rely solely on the police department. I want assistance from the health department, from human services. I want to partner with our libraries to reach young people, and again continue to build on our already strong, fantastic relationship with Dr. Parker, the school superintendent, in our schools. I think that we have to have good communication there. So as we set some of our goals, it's not all crime reduction. Another goal that is important to me is community and youth, especially our youth, interacting with our students, our young people in our community. One of the goals that I set this year for the department is to have six open forums, youth forums, where I listen, right? I'll give some information out when there's some dead spots, when it kind of lulls, but I really want to have 6 forums citywide where I sit and listen to the youth of our city. I want to know how they feel about their police department. I want to know how they feel about their community. I want to know how they feel about their neighborhood. I want to know what they think about some of the violence that occurs here in our city. I want them to tell me a little bit about why it occurs, and then to ask their advice, their opinion on what do I think that some things will do to reduce that? How can we get ahead of it? How can we interact with that? I think that's important. I think youth have a tremendous voice. They're going to be heard, and I just want to listen. I want to hear from them. I think that's important to address some of their issues and concerns. So I have had one already. My plan is to work with Dr. Parker and in our high schools and have an open forum in each high school. I met with our team today and look to do 2 in March, 2 in April, and 2 in May. That would give us each school an opportunity before we hit the summer months, and I think kind of set the tone. I'll close out those meetings with some of the things that we're doing in our department and some of the things we have planned for the summer. I know in 2019 I want to have a bigger impact, bigger interaction with our kids in the elementary schools. We have an SRO in every high school and every middle school, but I don't have the manpower to put one in every middle school. So the 25, 26 elementary schools, they don't see the interaction with the police department that I would like them to have. So that was one of our goals. So it'll go out this week. We're going to ask for 26, 27 volunteers that will be willing to give up 1 hour during their day, whether it be at lunch, in the morning when school starts, at the end of the day, time in the library, that officers are going to adopt an elementary school, myself as well, that will read to students maybe 1 day a week. We can go and have lunch in the cafeteria with our young people, our elementary students, to see them when they come to school in the morning and be there when they leave on the buses in the evening. 30-minute interaction, 45-minute interaction, 5-minute. I think that's important. I want to do more with this department, with the elementary schools in Newport News, and we're trying to find some creative ways to do that. So we talked about our youth forums. We've talked about focusing on our elementary schools. A couple of the issues that we face. Well, you know what? Let me stay with youth for a second. We also have the young adult police commissioners. That's a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior from every high school. We meet with them every Thursday, and we have really strong conversations about some of the issues that I want to talk to other students about. They did their elections. We took the president, vice president, and the secretary to city council. They introduced themselves to the mayor and city council, and they're going to work with us on bridging the gap between youth and the police department. And I think that's important. They're going to be our ambassadors to the high schools and to the youth, and they're going to help me. Each one that represents their individual school is going to help me with the youth forum that we will hold there. So that's kind of how we're looking at moving forward on the youth side. We'll get our police athletic league. We've had one event already where we've had our coaches with our Boys and Girls Club, 8 teams, and we had officers coach each one of those teams. We finished that just a while ago. And I thought that was very successful. There's some bugs we need to work out, but we're already starting to look at the next activity we can do with our police athletic league and interacting officers and youth in sporting events. And I'd like to do 6 of those throughout the summer, maybe 2 in June, July, and August. Whether it's bike rides, fun rides, community events, baseball, flag football, kickball, volleyball. But I want to interact with our young people of our community. A couple other things I wanted to touch base on. One of the hot topics we're facing right now is stolen vehicles. That was a challenge for us in 2017. It was a challenge in 2018, and we already see those issues now. So our media relations here are here in the department have really got a great campaign going about lock your vehicles up, and lock items that you don't, please don't leave items laying in your vehicles. Most people, we don't see individuals breaking car windows, and stealing things. It's usually whatever car's unlocked, whether it's loose change, a purse, a laptop, a phone, a wallet, keys, whatever it might be, that you can quick open the door and grab it. And the other thing, when I look at stolen vehicles, we're not seeing a great deal of stolen vehicles that are being stolen, used in the commission of a crime, and then dumped somewhere. What we see is vehicles that are left running, doors are unlocked, an individual or individuals get inside, drive it to wherever they're going to go, and leave it. So I think awareness is probably the biggest thing that we can do on auto theft. What we do look at is neighborhoods that are being hit multiple times, increase some police presence there, work with our neighborhoods associations that live there, do some community walks. But we're really, really trying to push awareness. The question about, I wanted to hit, let me scroll back down here just for a minute. Are officers allowed to use taxpayer-funded vehicles to do personal errands? I don't know more about that question. Are officers able to drive by the post office to drop off mail while they're working? It just depends on what that is. We have officers that are on call 24 hours a day, individuals on our SWAT team, homicide detectives, other detectives that may be on call, that they may use that vehicle when they're out knowing that they're close to the city. So it just depends on what the situation is. It's kind of, without going too much further into that, so at times the answer would be yes. I agree that, Dan, let me, the good crisis Newport News outrage, they seriously need to be addressed. Newport News is outrageous. The seriousness needs to be addressed. All right, what is your stance on opioid epidemic and the priority? So reading the statement, the question, stance on opioid epidemic, it should be in the department. We need to crack down on drug dealers and put time with marijuana. So I would debate on the wasting time on the marijuana. I see a lot of robberies, a lot of shootings, a lot of home break-ins on marijuana. There are some issues that relate around that. And you got to remember, any type of illegal narcotic where there's money involved, guns are involved, and it becomes a lucrative deal. So we see heroin, cocaine, and marijuana robberies, but we are seeing, just like across our country, certainly up and down the East Coast, we touched base a little bit on the opioid epidemic, drug addiction, and overdoses. So one of the issues that we looked at here is we had a little over 100 overdoses last year and 30 plus deaths due to overdoses in our city. That's a concern, right? It's a concern across our country, and departments all over are trying to find ways to address that. Some say that we don't want to put individuals who have drug addiction in our jails, and I certainly understand that. Others say that we overdose, they get treatment, they overdose. We offer treatment, but we don't see a large number of those take advantage of that, and I understand that as well. Fighting addiction is hard. So I think that we have to look at a different way. That not one, there are so many different entities that are trying to address it. But I think we have to come together, put all the strategies under one umbrella, and see what fits best for a particular individual. I will say this, without going too much into some of our investigative strategies, we're going to try some different strategies this year dealing with overdoses. I did have a meeting with the federal attorney, and we talked about some of their ideas. We talked about that with the Commonwealth attorney. What's the best strategy? What should we be doing? How we look at it, and I want to look at it outside the box, not just traditional. Well, let's make an arrest or let's refer treatment. I think there has to be a holistic approach using different entities, the health department, our faith leaders, the police department, the Commonwealth attorney's office, clinics, doctors, that maybe give us some ideas on some things to do, community walks, getting out awareness. I think all those things are important. So I will tell you this, Monday morning when we go through our crime numbers, the only other topic we look at that we track is the individuals with overdoses, how many we've had. All right, let me go back here and catch up a little bit. 911, the first contact. Yep, look, our 911 center, those individuals that work there are some of the most professional people. They can't see what's going on, they hear it, and they're sending officers, and officers are coming back and forth with, hey, I need more information, what's going on, what's the situation, and that is that's a hard job. I don't take it lightly, and I think that our communication center is one of the best. They are just phenomenal people. They do a great job and a very, very hard job, and I appreciate the work that they do. Debbie, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very true. When you talk about needing citizens' help, I think that's the only way we're going to move forward. The whole basis of community policing, community-oriented policing, is it's not just going into a neighborhood and doing a report and making an arrest. It's about working together to understand what the problems are, to address strategies and ideas to address those problems, and making things better, improving the quality of life. And I'm all about spending more time on a call if we can solve a problem than just to respond, take a report, and leave. So that's really, when I interview new recruits, when we talk about in-service and our staff meetings, I'm looking for individuals who can think outside the box, be creative, new ideas, partner with non-traditional entities in the department and outside our agency to really address issues and problems that affect our neighborhoods. I completely agree. When I look at officers and interacting with youth, again, we have an officer at every high school, we have an officer at every middle school, and that's a blessing. A lot of departments can't do that. We have 26 elementary schools. I want to do more interaction with our kids. We laid out some things that, ways I think we can do that. Not just in our athletic leagues in the summer with our PAL program, but elementary schools, working with the library there, having lunch with kids, I think is important. And I will tell you, it's going to be a good beta test for me when we put this email out. I think it's going to go out today, where we ask for volunteers who would like to adopt a school. I think it's going to be overwhelming. I think that the officers here get that. We're going to create time that they're able to interact with some of our kids, and I think it's going to be important. Joe's question. Let me go back and see what Joe's question was. Oh, the Oakwood. Okay. I hope I hit that. But I will tell you, it is a key point. I have talked with our Commonwealth attorney, our federal attorney, our strategies here in the department outside our agency. But I really want to try to reduce that. I completely understand the addiction and how hard it is to get out of that, and we're going to try to do some things to help our residents with that. I don't think that those that are addicted to illegal narcotics struggle with addiction, that jail is the best place for them. I think it is treatment and awareness, but then also I'm not going to rule anything out of the table. We have to look at it at a holistic approach. Our next hiring event, that's a great. We hire year-round. If you look at our website, we're always hiring. We run an academy in January and we run an academy in July. So the academy in January just started. It's about 6 weeks in. We got a good group in there. We've got a little over 20 recruits that are in our class. I believe the number is at 23 as we stand right now. And we've already started hiring for the academy in July. I've done a few interviews already. I have some set up this week. But I will tell you, we also hire in civilian, our dispatchers. We're continually hiring. If you look on that website and look at some of the opportunities we have. But also, I would say also that if you're interested in joining the police department, if you don't want to be an officer, we have a lot of civilian positions, whether it's logistics, whether it's in records management, working with citizens who come into the department at our front lobby looking for assistance. So if you're interested, it is a great career. Coming to work every day and being able to help people, I think, is important. So we do the very best we can, and I strongly encourage if it's a great organization to be in, and I really try to work this department as a family. I think if we care about each other, we care about our community, our citizens, and that's a big part of what we do in law enforcement. Using that guardian warrior balance that we have to make our neighborhood safe and reduce crime in our city. Let me read this about domestic violence. Yes, we do I'm going to mess it up. We do the assessment protocol, the LAP. We're trying to get individuals, men or women, who are abused to be in direct contact right away. That's a great program. I had some familiarity with that in my last agency. We do that. We use that here, and it is a great tool. And you're exactly right. Getting that direct phone call right away, I think, gets the ball rolling, and it is a tremendous asset. And it has shown some benefits already in some of the domestic violence cases that I have seen just this year. Prayers for the safety officers. Hopefully you guys will be able to reach the youth in areas and clean up the schools. Tracy, I will tell you, when I came to Newport News, I've been here about 7-8 months. When I came here, my 3 goals were to reduce crime in this city, to improve the health and wellness of the organization, not bricks and mortar, not our vehicles and equipment, but the men and women who work here, sworn and civilian, that come here to work in this agency to try to make this a better place, right? And the third was to have strong interaction and community and youth. And youth is it's very important to me. When I was growing up, I had baseball coaches and basketball coaches that looked out for me and helped me. We interacted with officers. I remember the officer-friendly concept, the DARE classes that I had in our schools when we were growing up. And I think interacting with our youth is so important, not only for their view on law enforcement, but having them take ownership in their community as well and interact with them. So I have a great relationship with Dr. Parker. A lot of the school principals I've sat down with and met and had some good conversations with. I think we're all trying to do the best thing, and it's never resting. Hey, we've reached this plateau. It's what do we do next? What do we do next? And that's why the youth forums, I'm trying to do them inside of school. I want to show our students that I will come to them, right? I want to interact with them. But on the same token, I'm not going to allow those that practice violence and try to prey on innocent communities and keep citizens locked away in their house because they're afraid in their neighborhood. I'm not going to tolerate that. But I do want to have strong interaction with our youth. I think interacting on the front end, being proactive, even at an early age, and I really want to do more in our elementary schools. It's one of my main goals this year. I hope that we'll see some benefit, and I believe that we will. So thank you very much for that. Melissa, involved in the community and staff for that. I like that. They're rushing to make quick arrests and we're not getting convictions. Melissa, that's a good point. I don't think that I think that we have a strong relationship with our Commonwealth Attorney's Office. We talk about cases. There are individuals that need to be arrested. That needs to happen. There are individuals out there, if we look at the news across our country, not just here in Newport News, that do harm to people, right? But I also believe that an arrest is not the answer to every situation. I don't think we're going to arrest our way out of an opioid problem. But convictions are important. We want to bring good cases, the best that we can. Officers work hard. Commonwealth Attorney's Office works hard. But we try to present the best case we can and collect all the evidence. I wish that we had people that would come in and make a full confession to some of the crimes they commit, but it just doesn't happen. A lot of the times we have circumstantial evidence. People are afraid to come forward. So we don't rush to making an arrest. We do the best job that we can, and it's always important that we have a victim and we have suspects, right? Individuals who commit those crimes or are suspected of committing those crimes. And we try to treat everyone the same, the best that we can, do the best job we can, present the best cases, and whether that's in front of a judge or a jury. Now, I will say this, my time here in Newport News, I have the utmost confidence in our judges that sit on our benches, and the jury system that we have here. I think that we do the best job that we can in preparing good cases, work with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office of what the juries want to see. And juries change a lot. Judges change a lot. Officers, law enforcement, technology changes. Now we have so many with our body-worn camera and footage and what is the evidence. But I couldn't agree with you more. At the end of the day, but my focus is going to be reducing crime, Melissa, in this city. I've got to watch those crime numbers because they give strong trends and patterns of where we're at. Do I have more shootings? Am I having less shootings? This time last year we had 15 individuals shot in our city. Right now we have 7. Something's working, right? there's a reduction there. So then we look at, okay, what are we doing in these areas? What are we looking at in areas where we're seeing high violence or high shootings? Where are we recovering our guns from? Where are areas that we need to be focusing on? So I think all of that plays a role, but I am very focused on being proactive. I'm focused on removing guns from illegal guns, right? Stopping violence from occurring, addressing the individuals that are creating violence, right? That are wreaking harm in our communities, putting forth the best case we can with our Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and then having faith in our justice system. And I think that's how we have to look at it and do the best way we can. Now, I will also say, I always think we can do better. And I've said it, and I'm going to say it again, and people will give me a hard time because I say it so often. We are better today than we were yesterday, and we'll be better tomorrow than we are today. And we keep looking at the newest best practices, new ideas, thinking outside the box of how to reduce crime and improve the quality of life of the citizens here in Newport News. Newport News, Brandy, we do not. Right now, it is something, there's a new fire chief that was just hired by the city, and we actually rode around a couple weeks ago and had this conversation. When I look at our responses of when we get there compared to the EMT, that's something we've talked about. I haven't seen when I look at the data. I mean, we're pretty much getting to the scenes right around the same time frame. We have excellent fire rescue EMT here in the city. So it's something that conversations we'll continue to have. Like I said, the new fire chief and myself had that very discussion about Narcan, and we'll continue to look at that if that's something that we think that we need to move forward with, or are we getting a good response on what we have? So that's a great question. It was a good 30-minute conversation that we had just about 2 weeks ago. Let's see. We're sending the patrol officers training using. Wow. Jeff, so I know that we do use the LAP program. I don't want to tell you wrong. I've got new officers that are still in field training, so I can't say 100%, but it is a program that we use here. But again, I've got, I believe there's 22 officers that are in field training right now that I don't want to tell you 100%, but it is a process that we use. Laws and guidelines. Brandon, I will tell you, when we talk about car seats, I think that's that's a great issue. Officers can assist with if individuals are unsure how to put those in vehicles. Officers can assist, and so can the fire department, any fire station. And I would encourage you, if you have an issue, stop by a precinct or a fire station that could help you set that in and explain the guidelines if there's any issues or concerns. D, thank you. I appreciate that. See Dave. Scroll down just a little bit for me. Dave, I'd like to participate in a ride-along. Sometimes at one of our... Yeah, Dave, we absolutely do ride-along programs, and I'd strongly encourage it. As a matter of fact, and I'm very impressed with the department when I got here. When people want to join the department, they are required to do 2 ride-alongs in different parts of the city, and I think that's important. You kind of get a bird's eye view of what it's like. You hear the radio transmission, you're responding to the calls, you're seeing officers interact. So we do the ride-along programs. If you just contact us, let us know that's something you're interested in. We'll get that hooked up. We do ask you that you be 18 or older, but I strongly encourage it. And even if you're not in the field of law enforcement, just to get that experience, you don't have to ride for the whole shift. But just spending time with the officers, having some good conversation, hearing that radio traffic come through, responding to the calls, I think gives a different perspective on some things that go on in our community and how officers interact with citizens and respond. City gets set up in a community day where the different departments can do a show. Holly, well, first of all, please tell Malachi I said hello. He is very special to me, and I hope he's doing well. I hope his grades are good, and tell him I said I'll be checking in on him very soon. Community Day, we do have a couple things planned, working some community days throughout. There's 3 neighborhoods in the city that I want to do that at, a couple locations that we'd like to put some, at least lay out some of the equipment that we have, explain what it's used for, how it's used. You know, Holly, I'll tell you, you make a good point. We do a lot in law enforcement, but we always don't do the best job. I don't do the best job of explaining why. And it's very important for me for this department to be as transparent as we can, as open as we can. And I think that's a great idea of showing the equipment we have, explain why we use it, what it's used for, when it's used, how it's deployed. So we do have a couple of those set up. Just keep an eye on our website. We'll try to get those dates out there. But it is something that we want to do. And I know there are 3 neighborhoods right now that we're really focusing on throughout the year that we will be doing some community days on, passing out for information, walking through the neighborhoods, and spending time with our residents there. Dan, when we talk about illegal guns, I want to be very, very clear. When I talk about removing firearms from our communities, those that are involved in criminal acts, those that are involved with individuals that may be convicted felons, that may be involved in illegal drug trade, that are committing robberies, that are selling illegal firearms, firearms that are being altered, serial numbers are obliterated. That's the kind of firearms I'm referring to. Those that are used and are tied to and partake in criminal activity. And our officers are very, very proactive. We're using some different strategies to address firearms and the individuals that use them to wreak havoc in our communities. And I think we've been, for what I look right now, when I look at how many guns have been recovered from the streets already, I think we're off to a very good start in using some of the different tactics we're using this year. I think it's going to produce, and it's helping us see low crime rates right now. And my goal is, my hopes are that will continue throughout the year. Good point. We always talk about if you see something, to say something. I think that's important. I think that empowers citizens to take back their neighborhoods. We're not coming to your door and asking you to testify in an open court. We're not knocking on your door and saying this individual provided information. It can be through a phone call, a text message, an email. But I will tell you, the criminal element will only do what citizens allow them to do. If individuals come into your neighborhood and break into your cars, break into homes, steal items, set up a drug trade on a street corner, if citizens don't call about that, if they don't complain about that, if they don't hold the police department accountable to address that, it shows that criminal element that you don't care what happens in your communities. I believe that the citizens of Newport News do care. I think they are taking back their communities, and I think that they've said enough to this street-level violence, enough to illegal drugs, enough to prostitution, and they're calling on the police department to work with citizens to address those issues and reduce crime in the city. And that's what I saw at the end of last year. I will look at those numbers, and I see where we're at this year, and continuing to push forward. So I encourage citizens, if you think something's not right, if you know something's not right, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's illegal drug sales, whether it's people breaking into cars, searching out, looking into homes, if it looks suspicious, to call us. I would much rather respond and it be nothing at all than to not get a phone call and have to respond at 2:30 in the morning with crime scene tape. I believe that citizens of Newport News, when I look at the crime tip phone calls that come in, I am encouraged that citizens taking back their neighborhoods, and I think together that is the foundation for community policing. Trusting each other, open communication, response, and feedback, and I couldn't be happier and more impressed with the men and women who work here and the citizens of Newport News. Tony. Tony, I wish I could take credit for that. They've done a great job. Media Relations does a fantastic job of putting the message out. And again, that's, as I send officers, calls are prioritized. We send officers to high priority calls. That is a situation that we could get that under control if citizens would just lock their vehicles up. So I appreciate that. I got to give all the credit down to the Media Relations, the men and women that work in our public affairs and our police department. It was their brainchild, and they have done a phenomenal job with it. And we've seen a little bit of reduction, but again, just the awareness piece is huge. Scroll up just for me a little. Fire department will schedule appointments for cars. Great. Officer pulls over a driver. Brittany, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't understand your question. Let me see if I can go back. Correct it. I was getting, is it something patrol officers look at and pay attention to? We certainly try to the best we can to address child safety, the way that the car seat's placed, the positioning, all those things fastened in correctly. So my hopes are that we pay attention to that. But I'll do the best I can. I hope I'm addressing your question. If I'm not, it's on me. It may be something we have to reach out and talk directly. But child safety is certainly important. Traffic enforcement is important. And when I met with some of the judges when I first got here, they talked about some of our traffic enforcement. The dockets were not as full as before. And I don't want to just write tickets to write tickets. But when I look at some of the severity of car accidents that happen in our community, individuals that are hurt, I want to make sure that we are putting the right amount of focus on traffic enforcements in our communities and in our main thoroughfares as we need to be. And that's something that we certainly look at, and I want to pay more attention to. Let's see. Harley, hi there. Any cases of someone knocking on people's doors? He was wearing a hoodie, the hood, and wouldn't face the door. I'm pretty sure he couldn't hear. But I definitely did not open the door. Ms. Wilson, sounds like you did the right thing. I haven't heard cases that widespread, but I think you certainly did the right thing. And if someone knocks at your door and you're unfamiliar and you want to call the police department for us to respond and check it, I think that's great advice. Your reaction though was outstanding. That's exactly what you should do. If you don't feel comfortable in a situation in your home, in a parking lot, then you shouldn't be comfortable with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm glad you didn't open the door, but I haven't seen reports of break-ins with something along that line specifically. I will say that the Next Door program is a computer-based program. It's kind of like sending out information, emails, tweets that each lieutenant in the precinct is utilizing more and more. It's something I'm really trying to push, where they share with their neighborhoods what's going on in their communities, what's going on in their neighborhood, timeframes, type of situations, what people have reported. It's also a great way for citizens and neighbors to talk to each other. Non-traditional. It used to be knocking on neighbors' doors and having conversations, but now more and more information that can be sent electronically that is the fast pace of life today. But it's a good way that you can log on and sort of look at what's going on in your community and your neighborhoods. And I would encourage citizens to ask their lieutenants, to ask their precinct captain, are there any issues in the community? They still do the community-based meetings, but I think that interaction electronically, technology does wonders, and it's a great way. But it sounds like you did a great job. Very, very smart to not open the door. Okay. Let's see, is there any other things? Thanks so much, and thank you for serving. Holly, thank you. I appreciate that. As we move forward at the end of this month, the last 2 days in February, we will be having our crime summit. We'll sit down and kind of go through crime strategies. We've talked about what our goals are, what our baselines are. Now we're going to really hit some hard strategies that we hold people accountable for, myself included in each division. But what are we going to do? What's our strategy going to be going forward to address some of the overdoses? Are we going to focus on dealers? Are we going to focus on users, getting people into treatment? My answer to that is it's going to be all three. Do some of those individuals need to be arrested? Yes. Do some of those individuals need treatment? Absolutely. The dealers who are using high potency of fentanyl coming into our communities where that's sold, absolutely we have to address that. But we're going to talk about our best strategies to address auto theft, strategies to reduce gun violence. And it's not just going to be enforcement heavy. We're going to talk about deployment. We're going to talk about outside agencies. I'm going to ask the Commonwealth Attorney and the Federal Attorney to give us some advice on some things they would like to see. I'm going to work with officers, right? Not just captains and assistant chiefs, but officers that patrol these neighborhoods, that interact with our citizens. What are some ideas they have? How do they think the best way we could to reduce issues when we talk about gang violence, larcenies, theft? How do we get more proactive with addressing neighborhoods that might be having issues with each other, groups in neighborhoods that might be having issues with each other? How do we address that on the front end before on the back end? But it's just really brainstorming about laying out what our strategic plan is to reduce crime in our city. We had a 5% reduction last year. I hit that a couple times. We're at 12% right now, and I want to continue to see that number drop. I can't wait to address crime issues in June, July, and August. I need to be addressing crime in February, March, and April to set the tone for June, July, and August. And I think that's where we look at individuals that we know have active warrants on file, that we're looking for those individuals, not just letting them sit dormant, that we're trying to move proactively against domestic violence and get a good handle on that. When I talk about how we look at drug dealing and drug trafficking, being very proactive, working with our neighborhoods to see, and I will tell you, most citizens know what apartment, what house, what hotel, what dwelling is involved in prostitution, people coming and going all night long, seeing firearms transported from the house or to vehicles and back and forth. Most citizens know that. I think that they're a little bit apprehensive to come forward. And part of my job in this department is to encourage them to come forward and show them that we will protect them. We're not asking them to testify, and that we're responsive, that we deal with some of the issues that well, let me just say, on a much more proactive basis than waiting till something happens and then responding and trying to investigate it. But I think working with our community, our faith leaders, our schools, our Commonwealth Attorney, our federal attorney, our neighboring jurisdictions, looking at best practices across the board, strong emphasis in community relations, especially focusing on our youth, removing as much red tape and restrictions on our officers, really letting them be creative and come up with ideas to address crime in the neighborhoods that they patrol. I think that's a equation for success, and that's really what we're trying to push is to come up with new ideas and new ways to reduce crime, improve the quality of life of our citizens, interact with our youth, and be as transparent and open as we can in this department. Melissa, those are good points. We certainly have conversations. We actually meet with the chiefs in the Hampton Road area, and we talk about best practices and ideas. And I think reentry, people deserve second chances, turning their life around. And I'll tell you, one of the things I want to do is people who have been through the judicial system, I'd like to bring them to talk to youth that are sort of on that fence, or talk to individuals that are involved in issues that we know about, and share with them that, you know, there's better alternatives, right? Education, I think, is key. Employment. You know, we look at areas where we have condensed poverty, and we have citizens or individuals that will come from other areas and prey on those communities. So it's a holistic approach. You know, it's not just one, but like you said, I like your comment about tools to help them return successfully. But that's not just the police department. It has to be a plethora of agencies, nonprofit as well, that work to bring our citizens, individuals back into our communities and be productive. So I think you make some very, very great points, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Reach out to. I hope this will happen across the board. God bless. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, Melissa has that's a very good point. One is focused on substance abuse. But so as we move forward here in 2019, so look, we're at the end of February. March is just around the corner. We continue to partner with our schools. There will be some things I think that will come out shortly, really highlighting. There were some robbery arrests that were made over the weekend. They're going to clear a lot of robberies that we've had. We've done some great things with our schools to keep our kids and children safe, and we continue to make improvements and good strides there. I still look and track those overdoses. What areas am I seeing? And I wish it was just one particular neighborhood that we could really focus on. But when I look at them, they're spread pretty much throughout the city. So it's not just one section of our city; it's all over. But we have a great relationship. Our city government is working very closely together. We share information, and I think at the end of the day, it's really a holistic approach, right? Law enforcement, community, human services, works and utilities, parks and rec, all of us working together to make Newport News the best place it can be. When I look at what does Newport News look for in its applicants for recruits, that is a fantastic question. I usually have a list I'll probably get in trouble with this answer. I usually have a list of questions that by HR that I'm supposed to ask, but a lot of times I just have heart-to-heart conversations with individuals who want to work here. Look, we're going to teach people in our academy, and it's one of the best in the country. The training that officers get, and it's much, much more training than it was when I started out. So we're going to teach you how to drive a vehicle, defensive tactics, the weapons that we have, the paperwork. We're going to teach you all those things. But what I cannot teach people is to have a heart for others. So when I talk to recruits, I ask them, how do you feel about people? How do you feel about youth? What is our role in improving the quality of life of citizens? That's what I want to hear about. That's what I want to know about. How do we think outside the box? I want creative people, new ideas, that not just we respond, we take a report, we leave. If we have to make an arrest, we make an arrest. To get to the root of the problem, I want to solve problems. I want to interact with our citizens, interact with our communities and neighborhoods. So that is the key element. We can have all the best technology, all the best equipment, but at the end of the day, when we talk about community policing, it's interaction with citizens and officers. What I'm looking for in new applicants and recruits is this is a family-oriented agency. It is a professional agency. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely. Do we try to improve and do better? Absolutely. I'm looking for officers, men and women, sworn in civilian, that want to come on board in this organization and impact the lives of the citizens of Newport News, to make it a better place to live, work, and play, to solve problems, to be creative, to think outside the box, not just settle for this is what we've always done. It's not a 9-to-5 job, right? And you're certainly not going to get rich. But what we do is have the ability every day to assist others and improve their quality of life. And I think that reward is invaluable. That's the type of individuals that I'm looking for. I want a diverse organization, but not just diverse in color, diverse in background, diverse in age, diverse in experiences. The more diverse I have, the better off this agency is going to be. And there are a couple things that I need to focus on, especially here in 2019. One is I've got to do more with our Hispanic community. I want to bring more individuals who speak Spanish on this department. But that's a group. I met with a group of individuals, I guess about a month ago, and we were kind of brainstorming. But I as this organization, this department is for all people, and I really want to do more in our Hispanic, our Latino cultures. And I need more Hispanic speakers on this department. I want to be able to do a better job there, and that's something that we have to focus on in recruiting. I can't just sit back and wait for applications to come through. I have to get out and push hard to bring individuals that can speak different languages on this department. I think being diverse, and not just in our recruit class, right? Not just in our academy, but in each of our divisions and in supervisory ranks. That's important. I think citizens pay attention to that. And also the men and women who work here pay attention to that. And it's very, very important. I think we can get a handle on yeah, Tony, again, traffic enforcement, it's one of the things as I look, I also look over a 5-year plan of things I'd like to do for this department. And one of those things is to really put a more emphasis on traffic enforcement. As I look to grow the department, I think there is a strong push to have officers that are dedicated to traffic enforcement along our main thoroughfares. And when we have an accident on Jefferson Avenue or Warwick, I see how it bogs traffic down, it slows it down. And I also think you can use traffic enforcement as crime reduction and placing it around areas where we're having types of crimes where maybe theft from vehicle, or robberies that take place, that if they see a police presence on the outer perimeter. So traffic enforcement is a key element I'd like to use more than we are now. As I look to grow the agency, that's one of the areas that we're going to focus on. Connie, hello. I hope you're doing well. It's good to hear from you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we got about 5 more minutes. I don't know if there's any other questions that I can address. I want to again thank you for taking the time out. I know people are busy. And again, I'm just trying to be transparent and open up to what's going on in the department, give you kind of an overview of where we are, statistics, what we're doing, how we're interacting with our community, and then as we move forward here now in 2019, some of the things that we're going to be focusing on. The press conference I did at the end of the year talked about, I want to take a hard look at the suicides that occur in our city. Of course, the opioid epidemic, we talked at length about that. I want to be more interactive with our youth in our community. We already have good strides going with our use of force review board where we have citizens involved, our theme academies, and what I mean by that are citizens academies, our youth academies, our faith leaders academies. I think those are important. And we've talked about, Nettie, hey, how are you? It's good to hear from you. Really being strategic in how we deploy. There are 3 neighborhoods that we're going to focus on this year. As I look back over the last 3 years and then even expanding that over to 5, there's a couple neighborhoods that I have seen that I haven't seen reductions that I would like to see in those 3 neighborhoods that we're going to focus on all year long. And we'll still address when crime spikes in certain areas, but there's going to be a presence in 3 neighborhoods all year long. Marshall Courts, Ridley Circle, and Courthouse Green. Those are 3 neighborhoods that we're going to be doing events on. Community days, bringing out our command bus, interacting with citizens, overt and covert operations that are going to take place there. I'm also asking citizens know, individuals who live in those neighborhoods know, and in any neighborhood, they know where the problems are. They live there. They know what the issues are. I want to create a venue where they're more apt to come forward and talk to the police about what those issues are. We work together on strategies to address them, and that they expect us to respond. They expect us to address those issues, and we're able to deliver that and give good feedback. We may not be able to fix the problem overnight, but I think you can see some response from the police in 24 or 48 hours that shows you that we're working on it. I think that's how you build trust. That's how you build awareness and encourage others to come forward, and it is very, very important. So there are strategies we're putting in place. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna meet at the end of this month, next week, and we'll lay those strategies out and lay direct accountability on certain divisions, individuals, including myself, as we interact with youth, reduce crime, and improve the quality of life of the citizens here in Newport News. So again, I want to thank all those that chimed in today. We'll do this again tonight at 6 this evening and try to interact with those in different time schedules. So bear with me. I'm still getting used to all this fancy technology stuff. But the people here, the media relations, the PIO office do a fantastic job. And I do think it's a great way to reach out to our citizens in Newport News and share information. I want to take a few seconds here at the end and just thank the men and women who come to work here every day, sworn and civilian, that do a great job in this organization. I want to thank our dispatchers, our officers, our civilian employees. I want to thank the men and women who work and volunteer their time, right, to work on our police foundation, that try to help us find creative new ways to address on funds that come forward and how we can better utilize some expenditures in the department. We just finished our annual report. We're getting that, that'll be printed hopefully by the end of this week. We'll be able to have that posted on our website and give out some hard copies. That kind of gives us a highlights of what we did last year, what the calls for service are, crime statistics, youth events, what all is going on in the department. And it highlights the work that the men and women do here, and I think that's important. And they need to know that they're valued, and I appreciate the work that they do. So again, I want to thank everyone who the interaction today. Invite you back tonight at 6. Am I correct? 6 o'clock this evening. Again, thank you all very much. Please be safe, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.